All right, we're live. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday afternoon. We are here with our fourth episode recap for season 7. Our hosts today are me, Hannah. We've got Steven and Mike here as always. And we've been having a blast making these recap episodes of Survival Challenge. Last week, we were joined by David, Bobby, and Bob Crowley. Mm-hmm. So if you missed that, you can go back to the LRG Facebook page, the YouTube, the Survival Challenge YouTube channel, or the LRG podcast. Just search live reality games. Okay, that's everywhere. We are excited today to finish off season 7 with one more bit of content. If you didn't know, there's a whole podcast series called Behind the Player, where each player of season 7 did a deep dive of their game. And then I wanted to note that the field producers made a podcast to wrap up the season. They talk about behind the scenes info, what they thought of the season. And I'm going to put a link to that podcast in the comments so you can go listen to that. And before we go any further, I just want to say that this is a spoiler episode, okay? We're not spoiler free anymore. We are talking about everything that happened in the finale of season 7. So if you haven't watched it, stop listening and go watch it. It was great. So now to introduce our guests, we are joined today by the final 2, as well as the host and producer, creator of Survival Challenge, John. So John, Anthony, and Louie, welcome to the podcast. How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
Just living the dream,
Yeah. Of course you are, Anthony, because we have our winner of season 7.
He won?
Anthony.
I just found out myself.
So Mike, as you just said, what he won, we have been asking you every recap, who do you think is going to win? You had, I don't know if you remember, Mike, but the first recap you said, I think that Ant could really pull this out. And we were just yeah. Mm-hmm. So what did you think of the finale? What did you think of the outcome? All that jazz.
Yeah, I think it was hard because you all knew what was going on, and I'm just kind of throwing out ideas. But I think that Anthony had a very logical path to the end. I just was worried that he would be seen as that challenge threat, which he even talks about in his final tribal council. And so looking at kind of how he navigates those 2 groups in that final 7 tribal council, I think was really the pivotal spot where Anthony was able to kind of move forward. So I really was glad I kind of chimed in at that time. Louie, on the other hand, I was kind of you're not going to make it to the end. Everyone's going to want to vote you out. You're such a social threat. And they take you to the end. And I was just this is terrible for Anthony, but it's also great for Louie. And I was just I don't know how to feel about this. So I thought that it was such a strong final 2. I was really interested that both of you had such great things to say at Final Tribal Council, because sometimes you watch Final Tribal Councils and there's always that one person that just kind of flubs through it. Neither of you, I think, did that. I think that both of you made really strong cases. You had very different games, and I thought that the vote at the end was going to be a close one. So I was really impressed to see both of you really bring it at Final Tribal Council.
Do you want to talk about what you were messaging us when you were watching the vote count?
I have to go back to it.
I had Mike. He was all right, I'm about to watch the finale, and I was okay. Before you watch it, I want you to tell me predict what you think the vote count's going to be,
and who voted for who,
and who voted for who. So he predicted 7-4.
I did predict 7-4. I did predict it the wrong direction. So going into Final Tribal Council, I was I think Louie's got this. I think he's got a really strong case. I think he's got that kind of underdog story. I think people appreciate that underdog story. And then I was just looking at the jurors, and I was really looking and seeing there were some people that I think Anthony is going to struggle with getting them to vote for him, mainly Sam and Julie and those that, your tribe. And I really didn't expect Travis to vote for you. So that was kind of a surprise for me. Great for you, but just his way of looking at things was different than I anticipated. So I was really happy to kind of see him vote the way he should have voted, I think. I thought Louie just had really strong bonds with a lot of the jurors. So I think that going into that, I said 7-4. When I heard all the speeches, I switched a couple of votes, and I forget exactly who it was. I think Justin was like, definitely not a Louie fan. Like Justin was not voting for Louie. But I think he was the only one I was for sure was definitely not voting for Louie. Everybody else, I kind of started to flip back to Louie. And then Anthony gained a lot of traction too. At the end of the day, it was I thought it was going to be a 6-5. I really didn't know how it was going to go. I thought Austin was really going to be kind of a swing vote. So yeah, that's kind of where I was at. And then I saw what happened.
Yeah. John, do you remember what you were thinking before Final Tribal? I mean, I know I personally was brain dead on Sunday, so I don't even remember what I was thinking, but do you remember what you were thinking going into Final Tribal about who you thought had it or anything?
Yeah, it's so hard for me because I never know anything that's going on. And so my thought was, based on what I had been seeing, that I thought Anthony had a much better story. And I thought it was going to be a landslide vote. And I was extremely impressed with Louie's presentation. So by the time we got done, I was kind of like Mike, I was flip-flopping in my head from where I started to where I ended up when we went back for the votes. I had no idea what I was going to see when I got back to the urn.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about Mike, who just watched it, John, who was there live, Steven watched the Facebook Live. So, Steven, do you remember what you were thinking? So you watched Facebook Live, right? Or I don't know, it was afterwards?
I don't even think I caught the live tribal council. I knew how it ended up. I don't think I watched. This is my first time watching through the final tribal council performance. And part of me is always dreading watching the final tribal council just because jurors can be very vicious at times and you just really just look to shred the contestants for no reason other than the fact they can. But I thought the questions overall were fair, and both of you did better than when I was at my final tribal council because I was a mess. So props to both of you because I thought you both acquitted yourselves very well. And so it was interesting just seeing what people were thinking of. I think the only question that was difficult was probably Sam's question. That was the one I think everyone kind of struggled, and Sam felt very combative during it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I'll just say my perspective of going into that. Editing the final tribal was really cool because I didn't remember it in person at all. So watching it, I just thought you both did so good. And I left both of your opening statements in the episode. I just left your whole big opening statement because I thought your opening statements were so great. And I just feel like with some of these final twos, it's just so obvious who's going to win. I mean, final threes too, but I don't know. I just thought it was such a good final two. You guys both did great. And I loved getting to watch it again. So in the moment, I really thought Louie had it because I was a Louie fan. I was loving all of your antics, everything, every tribal council, you spoke so well and everything. So that's what I thought was going to happen. But I honestly, anything could have happened. And so, yeah, so that was a lot of stuff. Do we have any questions we want to jump into, or do we want to talk about rites of passage or anything?
I wanted to talk about a couple of the votes in particular.
Yeah.
And to see where everybody's heads were going in and maybe what you've learned since then. Because Anthony, when I watched the votes and what everybody said at the podium, it seemed like Travis and Sam were pretty solidly in your court. Did you feel that going into there, or did you feel like there was something else?
So I'm going to be honest. I was fairly confident that those two specifically would vote for me, but I also don't think anybody would have gone in just not listening. I think it would probably have been a situation for those two where if Louie really said something or a couple things that really were okay, he gets my vote because he just dominated this couple questions or whatever. I think they could have in a world voted for him. But it always, I was really close to both of them, right? And it kind of shows after the fact there are two people I'm really close to now. so it's always, I feel like it's always tough in that situation to not vote for somebody that you were really close with for those 4 or 5 days. So I'd say I thought pretty confidently that they were going to vote for me.
And Louie, I guess the same was probably true for you with Gracie.
Yeah, I would have been very surprised if Gracie didn't vote with me, because we kind of walked in tandem in the game together. Not necessarily 100% of the time, but we worked so closely together that I knew that she saw my game up close and personal more than anybody else did. So if she would have voted for Anthony, I think I would have been very surprised.
Mm-hmm.
And then piggybacking on what you were saying at that final speech, how you bond with the women. You picked up Rachel's vote, you picked up Julia's vote. Like that probably didn't surprise you either then, right?
The Julia one did surprise me a little bit because because she was close with Anthony, and I was afraid that my answer to her jury question, I wasn't sure what the answer she was looking for. I just gave my honest answer of like, I lied. I was lying to you fully. And I threw you under the bus and got you voted out. So I don't know. I wasn't sure if she was going to be like, great, I respect that move, or you tanked my game. This was the person I was working with. It was really up in the air for me. I did not consider her a lock to vote for me at all.
And like looking at her voting confessional, it seems like your answer to her was like exactly what you needed to say. She's like, you played me, you fooled me. And I mean, that's what I think. What do you guys think about that?
Well, Anthony, because you got a really hard question from her too. She's like, are you a hero, villain, or why? You're just like, I don't know what you want from me.
A heroic villain.
Yeah. Well, because my perspective on what I was doing was I didn't plan to be loyal at all in that game, like to an extent, but I planned to just do what I had to do. And it obviously showed I was cool going for Sam. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't know how to, that was such an interesting question because I don't consider myself a hero or a villain. I think a lot of people, I think it's very hard to find a very strict, someone that follows one or the other. I felt like I had heroic qualities in the sense that like my run at the end was kind of like a hero type story, winning out the last 3 challenges, but villain sort of in that I kind of cut down my own allies to get where I was. So
what do you I'm sure you've thought about this, but like what could you have done to win her vote? Or you know what you could have said?
No, it's weird because I mentioned this in the podcast I did. She texted me like 24 hours later and said, I don't know why I didn't vote for you. Like we were really tight. You were like my number one in a lot of the games. So I should have voted for you. But I think Louie like really impressed her in the moment.
She did.
Right. Well, I think what happened was Louie like she really liked his answers, and I don't know what her thinking was leading up to that, but I don't know. I think I don't know. I guess getting voted out that morning, and then just probably the emotions of the day hadn't worn off, and I don't know. Like if you asked her today, I don't know if her answer would change or not. But I don't know what I could have said differently to her.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Anna, Justin's comments were a victim of our microphone there at the podium. We never really pieced that together. But did any of you double back with him after the fact? And what swayed him to go towards you, Anthony? Do you know?
We did. Oh man, this is going back a while. Trying to remember. I could probably find messages. I think he Facebook messaged me.
I mean, I have my opinion. I texted you, Anthony, this. I was like, it's so obvious to me why Justin voted for Anthony, because Anthony was like, Justin was the best player out here. He was my biggest threat. Oh my goodness. I was all about getting Justin out. And, Justin's back there like, oh my gosh. So it's like, yeah, he votes for, him, but that's not the only reason, it's not just one thing, but that to me stuck out on the rewatch about that. And
the
then
other thing,
to be fair, I answered that way too towards Justin.
You did.
I didn't discount his playing at all.
I think that the dilemma with you, Louie, is that you were, I think, playing an uphill battle with his vote. Like, I think that he was already kind of set, like, I don't think I'm voting for Louie. And so Anthony was able to just kind of say what he felt about Justin's game. And then you saying it too didn't really like sway him away from Anthony. So I think it was just more of less like, because I think you talk second. I think you bring it up second. So I think it just wasn't placed well enough for you, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's interesting how the answer of like the order works like that. I'm thinking of Gracie's question in particular with that of like who would be sitting here. You know, Anthony goes first and he says Justin, and Louie also says Justin, but Ant was the first one to say it. So it's like,
I also think too is as much as we like to be objective when we're looking for qualities in a winner, we superimpose what we like in a winner.
Yeah, for sure.
And there was a narrative going with Justin, Bobby, David, Anthony with the big physical threat guys. And all three of them ended up voting for Anthony. So I think they saw in Anthony what they valued in their own games. That's just me. And that's probably why I went into the tribal, because Louie, you know, there was that narrative, the David Goliath thing. And depending on which two of those stories you like, your vote may go one way or the other. So I kind of felt like Justin ended up going that way, maybe with a little help, Hannah, like you're saying from Anthony's comments.
I think what was unfortunate, I recognize that in the final tribal that I didn't have obviously as impressive of a physical resume as Anthony did, like not taking away from his stuff at all. I really do, because I was ass those last 2 days in the individual challenges, but I think I really did pull my weight in the challenges in the first 3 days. But unfortunately, it doesn't matter. No one's thinking about the early days, and it's like, all right, cool. Like, but where was that translated the next few days, you know? But a part of my strategy was when I got to the merge was like, I can't be sociable and a big physical player at the same time. Not to say that I was dominating physically anyway, but if I really was, you know, to me, it's about diminishing my target, which meant like I can ease off physically.
Louie, what about the Luke vote? Where did you ever have him in your sights, or did you think that was a lost vote?
I wasn't sure walking into final tribal where he would vote. I think after our discussion, I felt like I didn't have his vote.
And also during Rites of Passage, you found out that Anthony and Luke knew each other. And you were like,
that was another thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our game, which surprised me, was that there was these little secrets that people were woven together somehow, or they knew each other, the Sam and Rachel, Anthony, Luke, you know, and obviously there's degrees of like how well the people know each other, but that's something that I couldn't help. Like my game just did not have that. I didn't have a secret connection with anybody that, you know, somebody else, like if you know somebody, you're just inherently going to root for them a little bit more. You know, so, I mean, that was something, you know, well, I think one of the questions was, what was your secret in this game? I was like, I don't have any secrets. I felt like I was playing truthfully, you know, there wasn't anything that I was holding from anybody that would affect the game in that way, you know?
Anthony, did you think that relationship you already knew Luke mattered at all at Final Tribal?
You know, it's interesting because I knew him from the year before, and we hadn't really talked since that game. We weren't really that close during the game that we played, and we weren't really working with each other at all until like the very end. And then I made a move, and that really pissed him off, and I understandably so, because I basically got myself voted out. So I really didn't know what to expect with him coming in, because originally in my original tribe, I didn't not like talk smack, but like I was trying to downplay, because I thought some people might know we knew each other, so I try to be like, oh yeah, he's really good, like he's sneaky, and so I wouldn't work with him. But when we met up, I was like, I think we should work together because of the optics. So going in Final Tribal, I honestly didn't know. I don't know now if it had any effect. I didn't know then, and that'd be a good question for him, to be honest. I don't know.
Well, John asked the question earlier, are there any votes you thought you had on lock? The converse, did you have any votes you're just like, I'm not even going to fight for this vote because it's just so lost to me already? Were there any jurors you just wrote off going into Final Tribal Council?
I don't want to say I didn't want to fight for anybody's votes, but I didn't think I was going to get Sam's vote. I struggled with feeling confident on the Kia folks because I know that they had just worked with Anthony so much more. And I know that I personally didn't work with a lot of the Kia folks. So I knew I was going to have an uphill climb to get their votes. I also wasn't sure, maybe Brendan was a wild card for me. I had really only had, one conversation with him the merge night. But that night goes by so quick, and the next morning it's like, bam, he was gone. So, and then he wasn't physically present for the tribal council. So it's like, he wasn't seeing all these things. I know we were keeping him up to date via the Facebook stream or, whatever, while he was in the hospital. But to me, I was like, I have no idea where this is going to go. And I feel like naturally, if he's going to respect a game, I feel like he's going to probably look at Anthony's game and feel like that's a game he can relate to or root for more than mine, just based off the impression that I got from him. But
yeah, I see that too. I think
the final tribal swinging to get any vote I could.
Speaking of Brendan, I loved your answer to his question of what's the narrative of the season and like the David versus Goliath thing. Like, I wouldn't have really thought of it in that way, but I thought that was a really good answer. We hear about, final tribal councils kind of like selling the story of like, this is the story you want to buy into while you're going to vote for me. And I thought you did a great job answering his question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
For me, I knew Gracie. There was just no way. Not that I wasn't gonna answer the questions the same way. I wasn't like discarding anything like Louie said. But I just knew there was no way. There's the rest of them. There was a lot of them I just wasn't sure about. Like Rachel, I didn't have any idea. Austin, I kind of didn't have much of an idea. A lot of others, I'm trying to think. Luke, I wasn't sure. Justin, I wasn't super sure. Yeah, the only ones that I thought were like the three Kias, and obviously that wasn't even true itself. Besides for those three, I really wasn't sure. Brendan was interesting because we actually had a really good conversation like that merge night too. That like, I don't know, it just really connected personally, and that kind of stuck with me. That was something, and we talked about it after that. He said that was a big reason why he leaned towards me, because he just could tell I was very genuine having those conversations. So
whether you meant to be genuine or not.
That struck me when he said that. I put the word genuine down. He said that at his podium speech. And that's the thing, like neither of you had a chance to really work with him. You both said the same thing, like one conversation on merge night, he's gone. And yet here you are with basically it's a 2-vote difference between first and second place. And he's one of them. And it's a really interesting thing to think about for future players, like, because you don't put much stock in that little conversation on merge night, but it could make the difference between winning or losing.
And just to kind of chime in on that too, it's perception too. So like Louie could have been extremely like genuine and honest with him, but the perception of Brendan and that conversation, that's where it ends up, deciding his vote, is his own perception. So a lot of times, like, and I'm kind of just like speaking for Louie a little bit, but like you're in that final tribal council, like what could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? And like there's that moment, like it's like, oh, I could have been more genuine with Brendan, but it really isn't that. It's the perception that he had of that conversation.
Exactly. Because I felt like I was genuine in my conversations with, when I had a conversation with Brendan, it wasn't a disingenuous conversation by any means, at least from what I remember.
Well, I think what's
perception is reality.
I think what was funny about, and I would actually, we're going off on this tangent a lot, but it was probably the most like real conversation I had, like not in the sense of I was being fake, but like it was one of those where he was young, right? He was 18 or 19 when that happened, and like I was almost 30, and like I don't know, I think I just saw something of myself in him from 10 years ago, and like he was looking at me like, hey, this is a really good dude, something to like strive for later. And it was just, I don't know, it was just a weird bonding moment that was just really, I don't know. I think we just both kind of felt it like, okay, this is like really, really good kind of thing.
That was beautiful.
It sounds like a special connection that like I wouldn't have been able to garner.
Man. So I mean, kind of on the same lines of like one of us had a question about looking back at the jury questions, I don't know if we've already answered this, but do you wish you answered anything differently? Did you look back and cringe at certain answers, or did you like I don't know, there might be a lot or not?
Well, the whole thing was so cringy to watch. I was watching this episode oh.
I mean,
like,
it's just you two talking for an hour. It's just you guys the whole
terrible.
time.
It's oh my god, it was the whole thing made me want to rip off my eyebrows, because at that we're on day 5 of this very emotionally and physically taxing challenge. So the fact that I was even spitting out sentences, it was a miracle. But watching that, I was like, just shut up. Say what you want in 2 sentences and shut up. You just shut up. Get on with the show. So that was cringy, and I can apply that to every question. Like, God forbid I just said something nice, short, sweet, funny, bam. Everything was like going on and on and on. I don't know how you guys watch this episode without being like, shut up.
Yeah, that was I don't like really watching myself back like that. I was convinced after the fact, like, I think people kind of said, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people were saying after the fact, like, yeah, you both did like okay, but not that great. And I just was not looking forward to watching it back. There was a lot of questions I just felt like I stumbled through. Like Sam's question obviously was just tough to it was a train wreck. There was like I told her after the fact, I just started reciting the 19th Amendment basically, because anything supporting women, I'm there for. I don't know how I would answer that still today. I don't even know how it would change my.
There was no answer to that.
No, okay. In my opinion, I think Ant accidentally answered it perfectly.
Yeah, I agree.
I think she wanted.
Like a stumbling
I think she wanted someone you to stumble and be like, yes. Right. You needed to agree with her. You needed to be like, you're right.
You just needed to say yes. Those of us that have been married a long time can tell you that.
I had only been married about a week before.
Yeah.
And I will never be married to a woman. That is why.
I think that's what the answer was supposed to be. So
maybe so.
I would say I would have answered that question. I wish I'd answered it less pointed. I was sensing her frustration, and I felt like on the defense, because I think in that moment I was like, I am a huge advocate of women. I surround myself with women all the time. Like, yes, of course, women were running the show, but you know what? There's not 2 women here. You know, that a part of this game was getting rid of the powerful women. Like that was the strategy.
Yeah.
But like, you know,
Hannah, you could have reversed that and asked that question in season 6, right? We could have gone back and said, what decisions did you make without the help of a man? Right?
That would have been really well.
Yeah. Tough for 2021.
Yeah, maybe not this year.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, John, that's kind of is what Final Tribal turned into, if you think about it. Season 6 episodes to come.
And I think it's a tough question to answer too, in the sense that like you need other people to get further into the game. So whether it be, I think one of you said it, whether it be a man or a woman, like I needed people to get me to the end. Louie, you just had mostly women that you were working with, whereas Anthony was working with a lot more of the guys plus Julia. So like you both had these other people you were working with, and it didn't really matter gender in your minds, but then you get this question and it's like, oh, I have to like think through this in a gender, mindset. And it's hard to do, after 5 days of Survivor.
Yeah. 8th question after 5 days. At that point in time, there's just no way you're going to handle that eloquently.
Not pretty. Not pretty.
I think one of the biggest parts of it is we just did not have time to like collect our thoughts. Like there was no in between time, and I think Louie would agree. Like even just like 15 minutes to like just sit, go in the field and just sit there and be like, okay, what did I do for 4 or 5 days? Like I don't even remember at this point.
So my question is about the rites of passage. Were you like trying to like somehow come up with your final tribal pitches while also doing that, or was it just no time? It was only the rites of passage It just ate up any possible time you had.
I was.
I mean,
trying
I
to
don't
not
know
sound
about
stupid,
Anne.
but
Right. I mean, it was hard because I wanted to give my attention to the rites of passage because of how special that is. You know, you want to talk about the people that you played the game with. The struggle there was some of the people that we just didn't have anything more than like, oh, we were at the challenge together and maybe like we introduced each other, but it was like, oh, well, they seemed cool. Like, but I think I probably could have benefited from taking that time and thinking, you know, at least having on the back burner what I'm going to say to the jury. But I just don't think I had the mental capacity to be thinking about both things at the same time at that point. And I also didn't know that we were going to go straight into final tribal. So I don't know if I was hoping that we would have a couple of minutes. And how did you feel during that?
Yeah, I wanted kind of similarly. I wanted to like give everyone that had played, and especially people that got it early, like something nice to like take from that, and just show that like they didn't just go out third or fourth or something for nothing. Like that we had like a good moment or connection, and so that's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
From the production point of view, I was very happy that you guys were there because I thought, as it turned out, it was a nice tribute to everybody who had played. You did a nice job with it, despite the difficult circumstances. But in hindsight, it really was a bit selfish of us from a production point of view. You heard me frame it by saying Survivor doesn't do this anymore, and we really like it. And we hadn't really asked you guys to go right from tribal to final tribal. So once we sat you down there, we kind of thought, oh, wow, they got to shift gears pretty quick here. But you did a great job with both, given that.
I noticed while editing that I feel like you guys were also kind of processing the game, especially when it got to the merge players. Like, I think like at Luke's torch, you're like, wow, this was like a big deal, wasn't this? Like this vote was a big deal. You guys were talking about like, yeah, this kind of changed things up, and it sounded like you guys were like processing.
Yeah, well, a nice thing about it was that it was a good refresher of what had happened over the past 5 days. However, I do remember thinking, be careful what I say here because we still have to go to final tribal. And I don't want to reveal too much to like I wasn't sure what information could be used against me or for, like, I remember just being like, just speak about how great this person is. Try not to reveal too much strategy, so because information can be powerful.
Speaking about the game, we usually start the podcast with these questions about previous episodes, but we just jumped into Final Tribal. But we've already asked Louie this when he was on a couple recaps ago. But I wanted to ask John and Anthony about the previous episodes that have been, we've been watching these episodes get released over it's been over a year now that they've been coming out. Thanks, quarantine. So what is, like, when you looked back at these episodes or looking forward to the episodes, what is something that you were looking forward to seeing in the episodes? Like, I can't wait to see this challenge or this moment. Or, like, what is something that has surprised you from the episodes? Does anything come to mind for you guys?
Oh, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, probably the coolest thing to look forward to is just, I mean, I talked to people after the fact, obviously, but like seeing what people thought in the moment, because honestly, I forgot a lot of what I said. And just seeing what their thought process was in the moment is really interesting, because I would admit to not having, in terms of like how the jury would read or like who was the biggest threat for the end game, my reads were kind of off. I'm not gonna lie. So I just wanted to hear what other people were saying, and I thought it was cool. And then for me personally, like the challenge run at the end of the 3 challenges, I was looking forward to that just because that just, I didn't expect it. It was just, that was probably the most unexpected outcome for me, because I don't know. It was a bunch of like the balancing coins challenge. Like nobody probably would thought I would be the one to win that, because that's, you'd think, oh, a strong thing, he would not like a balancing thing. And then the last 2, like I felt like all 3 of them weren't like, they could have gone any direction in terms of who could have won them. at least above the short, like the taller people. Sorry, Louie, for the Final Four. Those are definitely the two things, but mainly just picking people's brains in the moment.
For me, it's definitely the storyline, and I say this all the time, but I really mean it, because there's literally nobody out there who knows less than I do. I actually hear the audience talking about stuff that I don't even know, and so I am piecing everything together as we're doing it. And so to hear people, especially in the confessionals, laying out what the strategies are, who the alliances are, I just have no idea. So literally, a year and a half later, I'm still learning. Oh, now I kind of see why that happened, So that is it. That's why I love, and you've heard me say it so many times, Han, I love the storyline edit that you did, because it really gave people a picture of where some of these decisions were coming from.
Yeah, watching the confessionals, putting them in was really fun to kind of do. Go ahead.
To answer your surprise, like, did anything surprise me question? Probably the biggest thing that surprised me was when I was in the game, I thought I had kind of more fish on the kettle than I did. I think
that's
like there was. Like, it's not probably, but it is now.
I love it. I think it's great.
There's
what are you making, fish tea?
I don't know how you make
the
fish
kettle,
on a kettle.
not in the kettle.
Yeah,
on top. So
okay.
Just get it hot enough that the top of it, and right on, just fold it over. There was a few people that I thought that I guess had just written me off, like, strategically in working with me, that I didn't think was the case. Like, I think Gracie and Rachel would probably be those two examples. Like, I didn't know this until hearing them talk about it after the fact, but I thought I was still trying to, like, maneuver with potentially one or both of them at different times, and I don't think they had any interest in doing that with me. And it, I guess, worked out that way in the game. But it was a little surprising, but I guess not that surprising at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was an interesting piece too, because Louie, you mentioned it. You end up back after the reward challenge with Gracie and Rachel, and that becomes a moment for you where you could actually strategize and talk game, and both of them end up voting for you at the end. So you guys are the losers, and yet it creates this opportunity that you turned into something positive.
Yeah, which was not seen. No.
I mean, that's my next question is there something in the episode that's not in the episodes that you think that people listening, watching should know about? Like, is there something? I know, Louie, I have a clip from after the food challenge. I know that you and your podcast talked about going through Sam's bag to see if she had an idol. Right after that, you talk about it in your podcast, and it's in the episode in a clip. You can see you doing it, and it's just kind of like, I know that's one of those things that you said that, like, that was like, a cool part of your game that just never really got fleshed out. Just a little sneaky
I think
part.
there was a lot of sneaky behavior that I did that just either was not caught on film because it wasn't in front of a camera, or just it never came to life. I think a lot of my strategy is missing from the last 2 days. Just in terms of, I don't remember what the fourth night confessional looks like, because that's when I was at the bottom of, I'm going next. I'm throwing, everything but the kitchen sink at the wall. I was making fake idols. I was, trying to plant seeds. I was trying to get Julia under the bus. And I think a lot of my game started, like, moving ahead in that night. And then I rode that momentum the whole fifth day. But there's no confessionals from the fifth day. There's no, so it just happened. It was just my experience, so it becomes my word to everybody else, which is a part of the game, of course. Especially, but because, I wasn't decorated with immunity, wins or immunity idols and stuff. A lot of the stuff I had to do was instinct, and I can't make somebody else feel my instinct from my perspective. So it's really about hoping somebody is empathetic enough to put themselves in my shoes from my perspective, and then to appreciate that enough.
Mm-hmm.
It really does speak to the whole resume thing that we talked about at Tribal a couple times, because like Ant said, he went on that immunity run. Everybody gets to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you value that more or less, you come in a necklace 3 times in a row, it makes an impression. And you're doing stuff back at camps or in the holding areas, and we don't even have footage of most of that. So you have to sell it then, because nobody gets to see it. So it's a tougher road to go that way. So I got a new appreciation for that, I think, this season that I hadn't had before.
And I think it's interesting too. So as somebody that wasn't there and that was viewing it day by day or episode by episode, like I mean, I know Survivor very well. So like me, I saw Louie's story, even though it wasn't like directly in front of me. So like I could see the different strings he could pull and probably did along the way. I think that it is tough in an editing perspective of like not everything can make the things get on the cutting room floor. Things don't necessarily make all the episodes. But at the same time, like there is a story to tell. And I think Louie, your story was you were the underdog. You were the one that had to struggle at the end. You had to fight for it at the end. And I think you did. So I think your story, the story that got told through the editing and through what what Hannah had, I think is the story that was told. I think it was a great story. But I do see where you're like that, those little pieces that can be like, yep, that's what I did. Yep, I was there. Mm-hmm. So I see it. But I know that as a fan of Survivor, I saw that social game from you, and you don't always see it in the show either. Those players that are always like, I played so hard, and like people don't get to see it.
Mm-hmm.
From my perspective on things, a couple things come to mind about things that weren't shown, and probably the biggest one is I think it was the last confessional I made, which there's unfortunately no footage of, but I basically, Andy was asking me, I remember it so vividly. He was like, so what's your road to, how do you get to the end right now? And I think it was right as the merge started. And I was like, and I literally didn't know in the moment. I was like, I honestly don't know. I don't know. And then what ended up coming to me, and I was like thinking it through as he was asking, as I was trying to think of an answer, and it sort of in my head popped in, and I was basically like, I think I need to really quickly break down my own alliance. Like, I think I stick out like a sore thumb because of how the pre-merge went, and just straight up challenge ability, because they're not seeing what strategically I was doing. They know, okay, he was strong in challenges. He held his hands up with 2 people next to him for a way too long amount of time, and probably somebody to target. Whether that was reality or not, I didn't know in the moment, but that's just how it felt in my head. So I was like, I think I need to start breaking down. I need to be the one to kind of cut down my own alliance. And then I think that makes me look a lot less threatening. And I basically kind of mapped out almost not exactly how it went down, but pretty specifically what I thought I needed to have happen, and whether I was controlling it, how much I was controlling it or not. It's sort of how it played out. So it was kind of interesting to have that happen. The other thing was it's interesting because my persona, and like, this is actually how I am. I'm just goofy as hell. And I come off just aloof and kind of silly, and like, yeah, that's my word. And I'm glad that's the case, because you don't necessarily see like me having the like conversations with, like I said it in my final travel speech on the original Kia. I'm pretty sure I would have gone down to the last 2 people just based on the relationships I had made strategically and socially. And but like Louie said, people don't even care about that at that point. It's like the merge hits and nobody cares about you. Because I thought my pre-merge game, and Louie might think this, I don't know how he'd feel about himself, but I thought my pre-merge game was really strong. And then merge, I felt like I couldn't control anything. I didn't have the control that I thought I had on the first tribe before the merge. So it's just, I feel like on the real show you can see these relationships and the conversations, and it's just kind of, it's interesting to not see them and just kind of get what you do see, which is just not as much cameras out there.
I have a question for John, thinking about like what Ant just was talking about, like not having much control at the merge or whatever. Like, so thinking of previous Survival Challenge winners, do you see any trends amongst the winners of, like, is it normally like an under the radar game that wins? Is it someone who kind of maneuvers their way kind of between, I don't know. Have you noticed any kind of trend like that before?
I don't think so.
Mhm.
I think it's been all over. I don't think we've ever had like a Tom Westman or a Mike Holloway kind of win your way to the end player.
Mhm.
We've had people who have done well in challenges. We've had people who have done, quite frankly, pretty bad in challenges and still made it to the end. I think what we're ultimately trying to do in game design is to make the road to the end available to anybody, regardless of what your physical abilities are. If you know how to play the game, there's a way to the end. And I think we've been happy to see, back to your question, quite a variety of winners, which kind of tells us that I think we found a formula that works. And like Ant said, like the final challenges, they weren't designed for people of physical strength. And that's on purpose. You know, that's so everybody who gets there has a chance to win. And so it's a long-winded way of saying, no, I don't think there's a trend, and I really don't want to see one.
And you've also brought up the pattern of winners. What has it been? It's guy, girl, girl, guy, girl, girl, guy. So we're gonna have a girl winner this next season. I'm looking forward to it.
Seasons, right?
For the next 2 seasons. All right.
For mathematically
So you're telling me
oriented.
I should wait 3 seasons then?
Yeah. Oh no, I hope that next season doesn't just like be like, all right, let's vote out all the girls. We can't have a girl winner. No.
I wanted to say about the season in general, and we've all been saying it was such a great season, and I attribute it to the cast. It was a super solid cast from beginning to end, and the more people that apply, the more we're able to really just cast fans. And we've figured out how to pick that out of even a 2-minute video. And I'm so happy to see a season like this where fans get out there and fans just go at it. It doesn't make any difference whether you have a swap or no swaps, or like, that's all interesting. But at the end of the day, the players make the game. And this was a great testament to that. Like, this cast really made it fun, and nobody knew what was going on because the players were so good at what they were doing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, as a viewer, I completely agree. Like, you think like these twists and the idols are all going to be like these like big like moment plays, right? But they really weren't in this season. It was really the players and how they managed those social interactions, and the fact that there weren't like there were tribal lines, but they were washed away real fast. And I thought it was a really interesting merge to watch play out because you didn't know who was going to flip when. And it was a lot of fun to watch. So with no big twists pre-merge and the idols kind of like there, but not like over heavy, I thought it was a really fun season to watch.
And Anthony and Louie, I think you guys felt it. I heard it in some of your comments. Like, you could feel the level of the players, even with the people who were voted out early. There were like no dead wood players out there that were easy votes.
No, there.
Yeah,
there
I mean,
really,
everyone came to play.
It was wild. Like, thinking back, like someone like the person that comes to mind is like a Lance. Like, he's really good. He's done really well in games, and he went out pretty early. And I think it was just literally the caliber of everybody was insane.
In the Fallen Comrades, it was very interesting hearing you all talk about the people who went out. It's like, yeah, this person overplayed, this person overplayed, this person overplayed. Just like kind of naming like these are the players who did their own gaming because they just played so hard so fast.
Yeah, I think that ended up being that definitely cut a few people down. It definitely did. Colin's probably the biggest example because he was playing very well, very solidly, and just overplayed. I think Julia had the same thing. She kind of overplayed. Sam probably a little bit, Travis a little bit, and that helped me a lot, honestly, because I saw it. And like as aloof as I come off, like, I'm paying attention to what people are doing around me.
And I
It's one of the-
think that also. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Louie.
I think that if you retrospectively, if you look at the season, that's kind of how the season went. Was if you emerged as a big player, you were gone. And I think, I mean, for me specifically, that was kind of embedded into my strategy. It was because if you do something that's going to catch wind to everybody else, you're the new target. So it was just about like a series of like putting someone else in front of you, putting someone else in front of you, putting someone else in front of you. And I think that's why, you know, the jury was like, well, like we all played so hard. Like what happened? You know, what is your what's your big move? And it's like, my big move was getting rid of all the big players.
Yeah.
It was getting rid of the people that, you know, were making the big moves. It may not be as flashy, but you know, I think I picked up on that throughout the game. It was the way that like ensured your survival for the next round.
What really makes the survival challenge tough to figure out, right? Because you come in knowing it's only 5 days, so you can't play slow. There's been many players who got voted out and said, "What just happened? I can't believe I'm gone already," because the game is so fast. At the same time, what you just said, both of you, if you go too fast, that's going to take you out as well. So you're constantly trying to feel the pace and where am I in this? And it's really fun to watch how different people navigate that.
Yeah, I know when I first came out to play, like I had the mind of the survivor strategy of, okay, like, you know, day one, you don't make alliances day one because that's playing too hard. And, you know, I'll let people come to me. But like night one, they all made an alliance without me because I wasn't like in on it, you know? So it's funny how that turns out, right? There's survivor strategy, and then there's like playing a 5-day game strategy is way different. So interesting. Yeah.
I'd almost rather go home knowing I played too hard than too little. Because when I walked out, I was like, oh, I felt like I should have done a lot more than I did. Oh, well.
Next time.
I know, right?
If people have not watched the reunion show yet, it is on the YouTube channel. I should put a link in the comments to the reunion show. I thought it was really fun. One of the biggest shockers of the reunion show, I remember in the moment it shocks me, but now, you know, watching the episodes, watching confessionals, I think I see this more, is that like Bobby would have won in final 3 by a landslide if he was there, according to everybody raised their hand for they would have voted for Bobby if he was there, except Gracie. Gracie said nope. She was a Louie stan through and through. So that was pretty like cool to see. Like, did you guys get to watch the reunion show, or what do you guys remember from anything of note from the reunion show to talk about? It's kind of fun to hear people talk about, you know, the secret connections and all that jazz. I don't know.
To be honest, I was kind of like a zombie at that point. Truly, if you watch the reunion show and watch me, I think I'm sitting there like this the whole time. And not because like, oh my God, I just lost, but because I was finally able to turn my brain off for a second. It was just like, and like, because I didn't win, it was like, all right, well, you didn't win. And I was like, obviously I would have liked to win, but I was happy with where I was, but it was just like, just be a human, like be a sack of bombs right now.
I didn't watch it back yet. I trying to remember. It was just such a like surreal moment. I was just like thinking about all the stuff I wanted to do. I was like, I need to go call people. Like, I need to see what the hell people have. I probably have 1,000 texts. I couldn't figure. I just got a new iPhone and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off when I got to the place. I was sitting in my car for like 5 minutes. Like, I don't know how to turn this new phone off. I was like, I need to go plug it in and like talk to people. And but the thing I take away from it mostly was there was like a lot of cool, like unique stories that came out from a few different people that I like. Angela had a really amazing story that she had kind of talked about on her first tribe, but she went more in depth. And I was like, oh my God, like that's unbelievable. Christine's story I didn't know at all, and it was just unbelievable. I was like, oh my God. I remember sitting there like, Jesus, like that's gnarly. Like, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, not awesome that these things
Yeah.
happened, but it's awesome that they were like came here and like were able to kind of share their story, and sort of Angela like had this reuniting with her daughter and like reconnecting. Yeah, just a lot of stuff like that was what stood out to me.
Me too. Those are like continuing stories that we've heard over the years where Survival Challenge wasn't the reason behind what Angela and Christine did, but it was a motivating factor for them. Like, they had already decided to make some life changes and use this event to help propel them to that place. And it's really cool where the game goes beyond just what we do there for those 5 days. And it really means something to people on a personal level. So when you hear that, it makes you feel good.
I remember feeling really, it was really nice to hear the stories of the people that I didn't know, you know, the Angela stories and Christine's story. It made me feel kind of overwhelmed with emotion. I remember sitting there being like, these are all my people. Like, we all come from different walks of life, and we love this silly show called Survivor. And we all had this experience together. And even though my experience wasn't the same as, you know, someone else's experience, everybody can take a chunk out of it and, you know, hold it in their heart. And I remember being like one of the things I remember feeling was very overwhelmed with emotion of like, this is just so cool.
Yeah. Yep. So like 2 years later, like thinking back on Survival Challenge, and it's been 2 years, and we're finally going to have a new season coming up with everybody vaccinated, and, you know, you're going to have to pass on the torch for other people to get attention. How are you guys feeling about, as you reflect on it now that you've watched the episodes? I don't know what my question is, but just kind of like, what are your thoughts to wrap it up, I guess?
Yeah.
Well, first, I'm glad that it's preserved and the episodes are out. And Hannah, you've done an amazing job of putting this all together. I think I'm ready to. I think we milked our time. I think we've been talking about this for about 2 years, so I think it'll be nice to see a new, fresh set of faces play this game, so I can kind of shift to the viewer portion, because it's fun to be on this side, but I know it's also fun to share that with other people. So I'm getting excited for a new set of Survival Challenge players to have their own experience, and I can watch with a full belly.
In air conditioning, in the comfort of being inside.
Right.
I got my vaccine for the sole purpose of coming this summer. It was the only motivating factor. I don't need to talk about myself anymore. Like, I'm ready to like cut down other players that are playing, you know, judge them for 5 days, and then listen to them defend themselves after the fact. And it's gonna be great. I'm really excited for the next set of people. Hopefully they're ready to go. I mean, I would caution to not oversaturate on information. I started doing that a little bit before I played, and then I kind of stopped myself after watching a little bit. I was like, I'm gonna hold off. I want to be a little more like fresh-minded going in. I don't want to have too many preconceived notions about what to expect.
Yeah.
And
It was such Go ahead, Steven.
I was like, John, you're always going to keep players on their toes anyways, right? You're like, the game is at this point notoriously unpredictable.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on that. And with 2 years to plan, you can only imagine. So 87 days to go, by the way, not that we're counting or anything.
Yes.
But the season 7 videos was such a great bridge to get us through not having real Survivor, COVID, all that kind of stuff. So it was so nice to have that. But I'm with you guys. Like, we've kind of done what we can with it, and we're all, Hannah, you know, we're all looking forward from the production point of view of launching some of the stuff we've got in planned for season 8. So
Yeah, and you guys are going to be celebrities. You know, you guys are Survival Challenge celebrities now. I'm telling you, during your guys' season, when I'm doing confessionals, and, you know, Angela comes to confessionals, I'm like, hi, I'm Hannah. She goes, oh, I know. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, wow. So get ready for that. It's fun. It's fun being a little local celebrities in Macomb, Illinois. Any other thoughts from everybody?
I just had a thought, and it literally left as it came out of my mouth.
About you being a celebrity, about you being so cool, and you're a Survivor New York celebrity, you're a Survival Challenge celebrity.
I'm just so famous. I can't believe you guys got me to sit down and do this, honestly. No. It was cute that one of like the like really great memories I have from Survival Challenge, where there was kids there, and I remember waiting for like one of the challenges or something. We were just standing kind of by where the audience was, and this little boy, he was like, all the kids are rooting for you. We call ourselves like the Shrimps or something. And I was like, okay, that's so cute. And then, you know, like when we were done, like we were like signing buffs.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening? But that was very special to see, like, you know, the kids were having fun, and I'm excited to be the shrimp coordinator this summer.
I wonder if we're gonna have another guy show up with a buff tube top. We've had Dion and you do it. I mean, who's gonna wear the buff tube top next year?
That's kind of my staple thing. I did it in Survivor New York too.
Oh, you did? Well, look at that.
We're not typecasting.
I always try to. That's just my signature Luke. You know, I gotta do.
I think my like I've called that like the best 2 weeks of my life, just going from literally getting married a week before, went on the honeymoon to Costa Rica, got back a day and a half later, I'm flying to Illinois, do this, and it was like it was literally unbelievable, and the experience is just unreal. You just don't get it until you're there and playing, and like you can watch it, and like I talked to a couple people that had done it the year before, who I'd met, and they were the ones. Jack, who we talked about right before this, I had met him the summer before, and he hyped it up so much and just kept telling me, like, dude, you got to apply and do it. I didn't think I would because of the wedding and honeymoon, because it was so close to each other, but I was like, I'm applying regardless. So got picked to play, and it was no regrets of any sort going back. It worked out exactly how it was supposed to. So
yep. You know, Jack of the Circle fame dropping this Wednesday on Netflix.
And I'll say we knew him when, right?
Yeah.
He's
His
gonna
first
be the real
game
celebrity.
ever. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we wrap up? Mike, Steven, got any thoughts?
I just want to thank you, Hannah, for inviting me to this. I think this was super fun. It was cool to kind of be the one person that didn't know what was going on. So to kind of give that kind of fresh look, fresh face. It was super fun to watch both of you play this game. I hope to see both of you guys doing other things as well. John, this was a fun thing to watch. Kept me entertained during my quarantine. So yeah, I look forward to season 8, whether I'm here or not. I look forward to watching it. So
come out, hang out with us this summer.
That's it's in the works. It's a plan. It's a thought. I gotta make sure.
You got to teach him summer. Come on.
I gotta make sure everything lines up properly.
Yeah, no, echoing that, Hannah, thank you so much for the time that you've spent on editing these episodes and really having them tell a story. It's been really fun to watch.
It's fun that it's over for me, you know, but jumping into season 6 will be really fun. But yep, I loved this season. This season was so great. I will always say that. Loved it. And I think Andy said during the reunion show, he said, you know, all of us players who have played past seasons of Survival Challenge are all like saying that this season was the best one, when we're all, you know, predisposed to say that our season was the best one. We're like, yeah, season 7 was the best. So we're gonna have to see if season 8 people, you know,
They have
turn
to
on
bring
the
it.
jets, like Ant said in Final Tribal.
Just
Bar is
overplay
very high.
immediately, make it good for us.
Yeah, see how many fish get put on the kettle. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
We did a lot, surprisingly.
Yeah, but any other thoughts, John? Got anything to say? Give a little tease for next season, or any other thoughts?
No, I think I already said it. I just, and Steven brought it up too. Like, go ahead and watch video if you want. Get an idea what we're all about. But come with an open mind, because there's a very good chance you're not going to guess what we're going to do. We always have fun listening to you thinking that you know. So please keep saying those things in the confessionals. But it'll be a blast, as always.
That's a great note to leave it on. So thank you guys so much for joining us today to talk all things season 7. And I feel like we're just like closing the book on season 7. It's happening. We're just it's over. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you everybody for listening and watching. We will see you this summer, July. Wait, when does the season will be airing on Facebook Live? July 7th. July 7th, Facebook Live. Like the Facebook page, Survival Challenge.